So on my way home this morning from the gym, I was driving home and there was a drone flying overhead, like directly over the road. And I realized something. This is something that's already been thought about. I'm sure other people have talked about this. But immediately I start thinking about you can't just shoot these down because they're protected by the FAA and it's actually a federal crime. You can't actually shoot down a drone. And of course, warfare has developed to where there's a heavy usage of drones. You look at what's going on in Ukraine, you look at what's going on right now in Iran with their Shahed drones. And I was thinking to myself that we're probably on the cusp of having these drones all over the place for surveillance, which I know somebody's already came up with this idea. You see, if you're at a traffic stop, you'll see there's traffic cameras, right? And they get you if you run a red light, or they're basically used for surveillance. But can you imagine that these things are everywhere, and I mean everywhere, for surveillance? We would, of course, be moving even all the more further towards a police state. We are sort of a police state in some sense. I mean, we don't really have much of a Fourth Amendment anymore. Not much of a Fifth Amendment either, under the guise of anti-terrorism. You go to these other countries like Canada, the UK, Germany, they don't have freedom of speech. Can you imagine if you're in the UK and these drones are all over the place and they're surveilling people and you get in trouble because you talk to a woman in the UK, which they're already doing. You have undercover cops in the UK trying to catch men talking to women. I mean, of course, you have a population collapse. You've got migrants that are doing all sorts of other crimes, but the UK turns something of a blind eye to that. But if you are a British man and you talk to a woman, even though it's not a crime, they treat it like it's a crime. And of course, you don't have freedom of speech over there either. You can't criticize migrants, for example, in the UK or Germany, or probably not Canada. Although Canada, I'm not really aware of a specific instance of that. Certainly, you can't criticize people for whatever gender choice that they have up there. So, can you imagine if these drones are all over the place for surveillance? And how that'll evolve, and eventually the governments will just be in direct war with the citizens, much in the same way that in the Russia-Ukraine war currently, you have drones that are used for combatants. So can you imagine these things are all over the place and you get arrested by a drone because you did something that the state, either the feminist state or, and by the way, it's not just the left, it's the right too. There are moral panics on the right, and they say, if you don't, in other words, if you're not doing what the state wants you, it doesn't matter if it's the left or the right. If you don't do what the state wants you to do, they would just use drones. You would have all this surveillance. You wouldn't have privacy, or you would have a degree of privacy in a public place, right? What if, for example, I'm, running my business, legally I'm supposed to carry my business license everywhere I go. Sometimes I don't do that. Sometimes I just leave it at home. There we go. It's a misdemeanor. But I have my business license. Where is it at? It's in there somewhere. But anyway, a drone could be overhead and would, maybe ask me, do you have your business license with you? Maybe, I don't cross my T or dot my I right. And, or, somebody, one of my customers pays me in cash, for example, and the IRS says, well, you get paid in cash. We're gonna look into you a little bit more. Then I have to, by that standard, I have to prove myself innocent instead of them trying to prove me guilty. So Unfortunately, that's where I see things heading. I see drones being used all over the place. There's not really anything stopping it. Certainly in Europe, they're going to do this to enforce their mass surveillance in order for these governments to stay in power. So it's going to get really ugly. I hope this gets pushed back quite a ways, but a lot of these countries are investing a lot in drones. And we could see drones used for surveillance all over the place. We have traffic cameras. A lot of these cameras in some jurisdictions, even here in the United States, are linked up to a central system that it can be used for surveillance. So we're heading there. Your own router, by the way, spies on you too. If you don't believe me, look that up. So it's not good. And I would expect that drones are going to be used a lot more for surveillance all over the place. And there's nothing you can legally do about it.